This is TWiT.
I have to say, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if outrage mobs lost power because you couldn't always make sure that it wasn't like, an AI thing running it. I mean, if I critique someone online, my name is right next to that. I have sure had bad tweets like held against me in my professional career. I don't know. I think like outrage as a political force online, I don't think if questions were brought into the mix about the legitimacy of that, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the entire world.
But that would be the end of Twitter. I mean, if you didn't have outrage, you have no Twitter.
That's not how I use Twitter, I have to say.
Oh, every time I say this, there's people like you say, "Oh no, I find great value in it. This is how," and I say, "Well, yeah, okay." I don't understand you of all people, Brianna, who should hate Twitter. It was used as a blunt weapon against you.
It is.
What are
I
outrage
upset the NRA this week. It has been a tough week on Twitter for me.
I think if I were a politician, I would never use Twitter. Ever. I know the theory is great. You could communicate directly with your constituency without intermediation, no press in between. But it's also hugely risky, as many politicians will attest to. So Amy asked a question. What are outrage moms?
Outrage moms. I don't know what that is.
I don't either, but I can imagine.
I think I'm offended by it. But I
are you an outraged mother?
I mean, I'm a mom, but like
mom, not mom.
Occasionally,
mob, not mom. Oh, good. Okay, let's clarify that because I thought you said mom as well. All right, that's good.
Gosh.
Okay.
I was thinking mothers against drunk driving. I don't know what.
Yes.
Mobs.
About like say. So here's an example.
By the way, that's a great show title. Somebody write that down. Outraged moms. Okay, okay. Like think about Battlefield 2. It came out. They had really exploitive, microtransactions in that, and a lot of gamers got together and like basically screamed until EA changed that model. That's a good thing, but on the other hand of that, you have like game developers regularly like harassed online if like a Call of Duty patch changes the strength of a gun and people don't like it. So like it's a tool. It's like a chainsaw. It could be used as a... I got to ask you a personal question because you were the target, one of the most famous targets of Gamergate. You were forced to move. You've experienced violence. People have thrown bricks through your windows. And I would say, I mean, maybe a lot of that happened, I don't know, on 4chan and Reddit or somewhere, but I think Twitter was probably the primary vehicle of all that.
Yeah.
And you still support Twitter.
I really mean this, Leo. I have had dozens upon dozens of talks with Twitter in back channel over the years talking about the policies that failed me and other women. And I've seen them really work their butt off to address those issues. And I could point to at least 10 things that happened to me that Twitter worked to change so it doesn't happen to other women. So I don't think Twitter is perfect, but I do think they have worked to address these issues in good faith, and I respect them for that.
Wow. You're a bigger person than I am, Brianna.
Or a sadist, one or the other.
Masochist, I think, is the word you're looking for.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I killed my Twitter account with 500,000 follower Twitter account because
you're still on, aren't you?
Yeah, I
see.
I killed it and it's still there, so I don't know what's going on. I don't want to kill it. I want to deactivate it because I don't want somebody to be at Leo Laporte. But that is, and to me, it seems like no good has ever come out of Twitter.
I don't know. In the early, I hate to be one of those people. Back in my day,
when no one was on it, it was great.
I'll tell you how I use Twitter. I found it difficult to have a conversation. So I use it as a listening post, mostly.
I agree.
And I use it in conjunction with Nuzzle, which is this really amazing app started by the guy who founded Friendster, and it's recently been bought by Chartbeat. Not Chartbeat, by Scroll In, I think is the name of the company. Tony Hale, who was at Chartbeat, started his startup. Anyhow, what's cool about it is I have dozens and dozens of Twitter lists that I keep private, and they're all super granular on very, very granular topics. And I spent over a year putting all those lists together, and they're really representative of multiple viewpoints, and I update them all the time. And I use Nuzzle to surface when enough people have shared that those lists follow have shared or posted similar content. It will get aggregated by Nuzzle.
I use Nuzzle. So I love Nuzzle. Jonathan Abrams has been on before to talk about it. That's a sewage treatment plant. That's the equivalent of taking the Twitter fire hose and making it drinkable at the other end. You're not seeing Twitter.
No.
It's extracting the signals from Twitter.
No, every now and then I type in terms that I know are flashpoints. And it's a horrible, disgusting, awful, bad, really, really bad. And when the whole deepfakes thing was first happening, I guess last December or so, earlier than that, a lot of that content was being shared out on Twitter, and I was kind of shocked that it.
On the other hand, you got to see people were talking about, what was going on. It is a good way to put your finger on the pulse of what's happening.
Yeah, so I use it for that. I use it I speak, when I speak at conferences or I do book signings or whatever, I can engage with people.
Put your Twitter handle up?
Yeah. Actually, I have a little script that runs. So for those of you who are listening in who speak at conferences, here's a very clever way to use Twitter. So there's a little script. It requires a little bit of know-how and breaking Keynote if you use it. But you can put in the presenter notes you have the script running, you've got a little bit of code in the presenter notes, and then you can live tweet while you present. So I'll be at South by this weekend.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm one of the big featured room. There's be thousands of people there. I'm going to go through a lot of information. I always show my tech trends because this is when the report comes out. So what I will be doing is I will be sharing out and live tweeting my own talk, sharing all of the data, all of the links.
That's cool.
That's a really great way for people. Again, so like if you think of Twitter more as a utility than as a way to communicate with other humans, I think of it as a utility, and I find when I'm specifically using it as a utility, it to be quite useful.
I think about when Kara Swisher, Jack Dorsey said, let's do a conversation on Twitter together.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
And it was a complete fail. This is the founder and CEO of Twitter couldn't make the conversation work. That told me this is not a conversation platform.
No, it's not anymore. But it is a good utility. And I think if we years ago, many years ago, I told Jack that they ought to, this was at the beginning, the sort of beginning of some of the fake issues that we're dealing with now and the harassment and everything else. Twitter's, if you look at Twitter's numbers, their stock, like their valuation, it is not trending upward.
I could buy it.
It's not trending up. It's trending down.
Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just buy Twitter.
Well, but let's think about it. So this should be Twitter. Like Trump getting elected should be the greatest thing that ever happened to Twitter.
Yeah, the
because
president
of how much
uses
that man
it.
tweets.
Yeah,
and yet they're not. Like they should be swimming in money, and they're not. So if their investors were smart, if everybody was smart, they would turn this thing over to a foundation, let a foundation buy it out, and it should be turned into a newswire for the 21st century.
We've talked a lot about that. Twitter is a utility. Twitter owned by some agency,
and still have functionality still, but enable it. And there are ways to build in different layers of verification and authenticity and all of the other things. But it is not rocket science. If they wanted to weed all the trolls out and to, there are ways to make sure that it's humans who are actually sending out content. That's not complicated.
Well, but see, okay.
So
you just said, Brianna, that you feel like they've made some positive changes, but not enough.
So I'll give you an example of one that addresses what you were just saying, Amy. It used to be where Twitter, if someone sent me a death threat and I reported and they got suspended, they could take 10 minutes, make another account, and just get back on there. Right now, what happens if you get suspended from that and your IP address looks suspiciously like one that just got suspended, it's going to ask you to have to give a phone number along with that. I do want to point out, though, that solution is a very Western solution, because if you start thinking about, around the world, like a lot of people don't have a dedicated internet connection. They use their phone as their only internet device. So like these problems, like one of the biggest things I've learned in talking to Twitter about these issues is just because something is a solution in America, that doesn't mean it doesn't have consequences to other societies.
That's
like
right.
look at WhatsApp and how that's being used to spread misinformation in India. Like it's really terrifying. Like we think, oh, this is great, private conversation, and then it's kind of being used as a vector to spread things that are not true, and there's no way anybody can stop it. So, there's a more global view here that does make what Twitter's trying to do difficult.
And I agree. And I would just say, it's not as though all of these problems with Twitter popped up overnight. And if we're talking about, and that's sort of one technology in one space, we start thinking about other technologies like all of the things happening within an artificial intelligence, genomic editing and CRISPR, autonomous transport. I mean, there's all these different areas of technology. It is incumbent upon the people, I think, building the technology to model out risk in advance. And I've had conversations with Twitter multiple times. And the thing that I've always heard is, well, we were just working on the product. We're just focused on the product. We weren't thinking about making money. If I hear one more person say they're focused on the product, it's possible to focus on the product while thinking about the ramifications and implications of that product. And quite honestly, that's what the management team should be doing. Risk profiling should be part and parcel of what every tech company is working on, and that's how we prevent. That's how we reverse engineer preferred futures to now, so that Twitter isn't it doesn't have the kind of problems, the world-changing problems that we're now starting to see. It didn't happen overnight.